Thank you for being brave, Debs, and inviting me in your home today to talk about your beautiful daughter, Kate, who I've spent some time with, and she is a stunner.
Oh, thank you. And it's lovely to have you here. And you know what, Sarah, this isn't being brave. This is doing what any mother or parent would do when you have such a sick child. You need to do everything you can and speak out, and so other parents can hear and see what you're going through, and hopefully along this journey of ours we'll be able to really help some other children and some other families.
Yeah. The mainstream perception is that vaccines are really safe and that Gardasil reactions are just mother and teen hysteria.
Well,
you do have a response.
Don't get me started on safe vaccines, because my child was a very healthy, academic, sporty 12-year-old girl. She has been fully vaccinated. She hit all her milestones. She's never been a sick child. I made the decision to vaccinate because we go along and we trust our medical professionals, and me, ironically, coming from the side of being diagnosed with cervical cancer, it was a no-brainer. I went ahead, and my doctor said, you know, go for it, you've got to do this, it's the best vaccine out. I never researched it, and it's destroyed her life. It's destroyed her immune system, it's destroyed her central nervous system, it's destroyed our whole family. It's been really, really tough. This vaccine is not safe.
Happened yesterday when I started, like my phone hadn't rung all morning.
And then you start filming.
Yeah, and then my phone rang again, so I'm going to have to learn how to do something about...
Silencer?
Yeah. Can you show me? Can you show me how to do that? Because I'm not very technically,
advanced.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
But so you can look and you can research as we do as parents, and particularly with the Gardasil. There was no long-term ovarian functional studies done. The placebo wasn't a true placebo.
So you knew this before? Or
No, of course not. So I knew this before. I wouldn't have gone anywhere near it. To me, this is just a vaccine crime against children. These girls, a lot of them are going into premature ovarian failure because there's been no, studies done on that. It is completely, with my daughter, it's the aluminium has crossed her blood-brain barrier, and it's caused huge psychotic problems. She's had hallucinations. Up until 6 months ago, she could see and hear people. She was put in a psych ward in Starship, which was just absolutely horrific. Worst place she could have gone. Then a week after being in that ward, they re-looked at her tests, her brain MRI, and rang me in a mad panic saying, get in here now. This is, we need your whole family here. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And they said, this isn't a trauma. She hasn't, as in a life trauma of being beaten or whatever. This child has a severely swollen brain. Her hippocampus area is extremely swollen. Luckily, they re-looked at those tests, because then they put it from psych ward to medical. But because she was in such a state, she was going from urology back to psych ward, because at that time, her whole world had blown apart. She thought she was going crazy. She wanted to kill herself. She was scared she was going to hurt me. And these voices were really strong and dark. And you imagine as a parent, the hardest thing, you have your beautiful 12-year-old child running around. She slowly regressed, like prior to October 2014, that maybe only 6 weeks before that. That was a month after her third shot. She was just quiet. She wouldn't go to school. She was in her room a lot. We went to school, asked the teachers, is she being bullied? We even went down the road of, good God, is there drugs involved here? She's 12, but there wasn't. Until Halloween, 31st of October 2014, she came to me and she said, Mum, I think I've gone crazy. And she was literally a shaking mess. So that's how our journey started.
It's hugely significant that Kate has a diagnosis of brain inflammation.
Limbic encephalitis, yes.
And is that on the package insert of Gardasil?
Yes. and seizures and death and autoimmune disease, and it's all on the insert. But
so those side effects are also on the MMR.
correct. Oh yes.
Package
Yeah.
insert as well.
But what medical professional gives you that? You're supposed to have informed consent here. No one gives it to you. And yes, as parents now, I know, I would never ever. Well, I am now what I call myself an ex-vaxxer, because how did we get to this point in our life? How did I? Well, sometimes I destroyed my child's life. I was I vaccinated her, and layer upon layer, and then Gardasil just completely destroyed her system. And I have doctors, and we've been in ED after ED, visits. I've had doctors and nurses say, let's close the door, let's whisper this, because no one can hear me because I'll lose my job. They've seen so many girls like this. We've been trying to get our story out to the media, and a year and a half ago 3D did a documentary on Kate and 3 other families, and their symptoms are all the same. They get diagnosed with central neural sensitization syndrome, POTS, CRIPS, chronic pain in the stomach. Kate's got a 24/7 migraine headache that feels like she's going to, her brain's going to explode out of her skull.
Well, that you could understand that, given that she's got brain inflammation.
Correct. But no, this is all in their head,
Yeah. So
I was told
mother and teen hysteria.
Yeah. And I was told after her second... Now, I never put all this together until I put her medical records together, because her first vaccination, she woke up 2 weeks after with just like burning joints and couldn't get out of bed and fever. So we go to Starship, and that's an unexplained virus. And she was in there for the day, and, gave her some fluids and sent home. And then she came right. So because these vaccinations are spread over 6 or 7 months, her vaccinations were March, May and September. So May she had the second one, and within 3 weeks of that she had the most chronic pneumonia, and she was on morphine, IV morphine, for the pain, but it was that stomach pain that these girls get. And the doctor, after 5 days, said, I want you to take her home, this is in her head. And she's lying in the fetal position in a hospital bed screaming, I'm crying, and he said, it's in her head, take her home. So we get through the pneumonia, and I still hadn't put that together. And the third one was, boom, then kicked in the psychosis, the hallucinations, the headaches, the anxiety, the depression, the inability to control your body temperature, food intolerances. It just goes, symptoms just go on and on and on.
On and on and on.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no doubt in your mind that...
Absolutely no doubt.
I don't even need to finish that sentence, do I?
No, how could there be? Like I said to you before, you cannot have a perfectly healthy child with no history of all of these symptoms, and then get these vaccinations, and then you go back and look at the records, and within a month of every vaccination, she's getting sicker and sicker and sicker until her whole system's blown apart. Now, I took her to and I've searched and searched and searched. We've been to therapist after therapist after therapist, because mainstream medical can't do anything for these kids. Their test results come back clear. ECGs, EEGs, everything.
Apart from their MRIs.
From the MRI, correct, the MRI. But still, they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how this happened.
Yeah.
We injected aluminium straight across into her brain. So, and then you're back to your question, is it safe? I hear people say and post on Facebook all the time, oh, don't use deodorants with aluminium. Don't cook in your aluminium pots. It's it's not good. Don't use tinfoil. But it's okay to go and you'd inject that directly into your child's bloodstream.
It's way healthier injected.
Yeah, that's okay. That's safe? No, it's not safe. And we've had 3 years, and we're battling, and her symptoms seem to be cyclic. We get through. We've just been in hospital again. We're in rehab because of this pain syndrome. She's in a wheelchair. She can't walk. The pain is excruciating. You can't touch her skin. I've been taking my 15-year-old child to the toilet. She's been going to the toilet on a commode. She said, Mum, I've lost all my dignity. My partner has been taking her to the toilet on the commode. she can't, as of 2 weeks ago, she couldn't do anything for herself.
I walked into your bathroom and I thought that you had a 90-year-old,
Well, that's exactly what it looks like.
disabled
Correct. And that's
father or
yeah.
mother living in your house, and that was all Kate's equipment.
And, for me as a mother, I work full-time. I have a full-time job. Well, I've had to stop working because I have to care for my daughter 24/7. When she's been in hospital, I couldn't leave her side. She was in so much pain. She's in rehab now. I've got to be with her every day. There's no help from the government. There's no subsidies anywhere. You could never have a vaccine-injured child in New Zealand. It just doesn't exist. Someone said to me, "Oh, just go under ACC treatment injury." Well, they don't hand out ACC for a vaccine injury. I've tried to get some help, but there's no help. There's nothing. So what do parents like us do when you work full-time?
You're up against a lot of brick walls, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, you get hospital people, you try and find an answer to help your child any way you can. So, one of the first times Kate was in hospital, I got some outside therapists who really helped her. But then, of course, someone in the hospital saw. I got hauled over the coals, dragged into a meeting room with specialists and nurses and doctors and told off like a little school kid. And if you don't abide by our rules, you're out. We were going to Wilson Home Rehab then. They said, "You're not coming if you're going to do this." And I said, "Well, I haven't seen any of you people get my child up and walk, So they don't know how to deal with this chronic pain. And they just told me, "We've just been in the hospital." They do not know how to deal with it. And unfortunately, mainstream medical can't. She's been on IV morphine, IV Valium. 3 weeks ago, that child was an absolute zombie. But she couldn't cope with the pain. She just could not function. And for 6 days in the hospital, they gave her nothing. And I ended up saying to the doctor, "This was your daughter, and she's lying here screaming in pain. She can't even lift her legs. She couldn't move from the waist down. She could not move her toes. Screaming in agony. What would you do? She needs some pain relief." So finally, after 6 days, that's what we got. But it doesn't fix the problem, unfortunately, because it's blowing their brains to pieces. And, now we're in rehab. This neurophysics is opening pathways, opening new brain pathways and turning off pain receptors, and it's incredible. And she's out walking. Now, 2 weeks ago, she said, "Mum, I'm a vegetable." And she was. So, within 2 weeks, we've got her up walking. And the hospitals can't do that. Mainstream medical, I don't know why they don't have these therapists in the hospitals for these kids. Because that's what they need.
So you found a lot of answers outside of the mainstream system.
The only place. And the only way I've done it, Facebook's been a godsend for me because I'm in groups worldwide. All these girls have identical symptoms.
Whilst you're talking about Facebook, what's been the response of public on Facebook when you try and discuss your child's injury?
Mine personally, when I post, mine's been pretty good.
It might be something to do with that brain inflammation that could be helping you be removed from mother and teen hysteria over to...
But it's, mine personally, if I post, has been pretty good. But I notice if I make a comment on a public news article or, if something
like
comes
News
into...
Hub or Herald
or something like that. Then
TVNZ, Breakfast...
Then you get people just going at you, this can't be happening. This isn't, it's rubbish. And I was like, well, you come and live our life for a week. Come and live our life for a day. Come and live our life for an hour. It is real. It's very real. So no, they're not safe.
Mainstream has an opinion that to not vaccinate you are a risk to public health. Do you feel a risk to public health?
A risk to public health? No. How can we be a risk to public health? My daughter is now a burden to public health because we vaccinated her. How on earth, how many women die of cervical cancer a year in New Zealand? 50? I mean, statistics on melanoma, there's 385 people or something a year that die of melanoma. Most cervical cancers in women clear themselves with regular pap smears,
You've had cervical cancer and Kate has received the vaccine and this has been
Yeah, and look where she is.
a little bit of a horror story sense.
And I'm fine.
Both of you are on either side of the fence.
Correct.
The cervical cancer and the cervical vaccine.
Ironically, yes. Which side would I rather be on?
Yeah. I actually feel like I'm insulting you to even ask you that question, so...
You know, I would never, ever. I mean, if I could have my time again, never, ever go near this. I mean, if you start reading, and you can sit and research it and look at Merck's websites and all their statements.
Is Merck who make, they're the manufacturer of the vaccine?
Gardasil, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a statement on their website that their priorities are their shareholders. And they know these kids are being vaccine injured. That's why I said to you before, it's a vaccine crime against children. They know, but their priorities are profitability.
Well, like any other company, they have CEOs, they have shareholders, they have people that they have to impress.
Yeah. But it just seems to me that the FDA and the CDC have this revolving door and they all tap each other's backs. You're right, mate, and off you go. They know death. I mean, there's girls dying. These groups we're on, you become a family. You know, we've got America, UK, Ireland, Canada, you name it, Mexico, Colombia, New Zealand, Australia. We become this family because we need help. And the only way we get help is through families that have gone through what we've gone through. And they'll say, hey, how about you try this test? This test helped my daughter. It may not help your daughter, but at least we have someone out there that is helping us. And these girls, you become really close to their, you know, you get to know them, you get to know their families, you get to know the dynamics of their families. And then last week, we had one of the ladies say her daughter passed. 5 years. 5 years of struggling, and her symptoms were identical to Kate's. And it was at the time when Kate was in hospital in that pain. You know, their hearts give up. Kate's heartbeat was just pumping, and I could see it in her neck, and it was terrifying because how long can these kids' hearts keep going? You know, how long can it last when it's under so much pressure and so much strain, and they're in pain all the time, and it's heartbreaking.
And when you talk about that family, that community around the world, a new phenomenon that has happened since the Vaxxed movie is that the Gardasil family, the Gardasil affected family, and the all vaccine family, as in our children have brain injuries and autism diagnosis, because it's not just the MMR causing this injury, because our younger children are overloaded and only can handle so much.
Correct.
And all vaccines can do that to our children. It's just the MMR is higher up on the risk factor. The family around the world, the autism world and the Gardasil injury world has really found each other. And it feels like the daughters have the voice for our children that don't have the voice because they're not old enough to
that's right
express about what's happened in their body.
Well, even like, you know, like today we asked Kate if she could come, you know, if she wanted to sit with us in this interview. She can't even talk about how sick she's been because it puts her into such a state of anxiety, and she's not ready to do that. You know, she's still dealing with this. And to have a child say to you crying every day, I just want to be normal, I just want to be normal, Mum, why me? You know.
And she's making the right decision because I've been through this journey with my own son, is that it's not part of the healing journey to hang around in talking about the injury. Even though mainstream would like to put us parents in the category of that we've manifested this in our children, or we've created it from, you know, over pampering or talking about the situation too much. It's actually quite the opposite.
Of course it is.
It's not a conversation that happens around the meal table.
No.
That part of our training as parents with the, you know, rewiring of the brain pathways is to actually not acknowledge their symptoms.
And that's the thing, because you get, when Kate was first in hospital, and every time she's in hospital, she's under 5 different teams, and one's always a psych team. In the end, we just said no more, because, you know, she goes in the psych team, how do you feel? Well, how do you think she feels? You know, and the poor child goes in there 2 years ago ready to top herself, and she comes out of these meetings 10 times worse. You know,
and they kind of like want to turn it around that it's the family's fault, the family's dynamics fault. It's in the child's fault.
How can it be the family dynamics fault? There's no dynamics wrong in this family.
To tell a child, you know, a young lady, that this is not real, and this is, you know, something that you've conjured up in your mind, is one of the biggest crimes in itself.
And that's why